Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio. And now, here is Walter Bingham.
Hello and welcome to the first program of the new year. 3 days ago, the world greeted 2022. Unfortunately, the raging COVID pandemic saw to it that the celebrations were not as boisterous as usual. It did, of course, not affect your New Year's resolutions. And I hope that you consider to criticize less harshly the events that don't correspond to your own views, and instead search for the positive. In fact, the traditional Jewish rubric is Tikkun Olam, repair the world. In other words, seek the good in every action. In the Hebrew calendar, it's the 2nd of Shvat 5782. I am Walter Bingham. In today's program, we hear about the subject of dealing with fading memory in the older generation. On official correspondence, you would often see the letters MM following my name. They stand for a military decoration, but today I want to discuss quite a different meaning of MM. I shall talk about memory matters, and as you know too well, the memory matters a great deal. In fact, the occasional lapse can drive one to despair. How many times did you wonder what you came to the fridge for, or why you went into the bedroom? Don't worry, there is nothing really wrong with you, even if you are not of advanced age. It's not the onset of senility, nor, God forbid, the disease of Alzheimer's. I can tell you that I am doing it all the time, and as you know, I am certainly far from being senile. It's a matter of concentration on your task at hand and not to allow yourself to be sidetracked by anything you see en route. There's a method of how you can train yourself. It takes a little time, but it works. So in order to learn more about improving my own memory, I consulted Rena Yudkowsky, who is a qualified and highly respected memory coach. And because it is most likely that some of my listeners could benefit from her training, I'm pleased that she has taken time to travel from her home in the country to be at the studio today so that she can introduce you to the initial rudiments of memory training. Welcome to the Walter Bingham File, Rena.
Thank you so much for having me today.
If it's neither senility nor any other serious disease, why does it happen more than once a day to the extent that I have even left the front door key outside all night?
This happens to all of us. The short answer is it's a concentration issue. We're really not paying attention to what we're doing. So you left the key in there because you were probably thinking about the next thing you need to do when you get in your house. So your brain skipped ahead and you weren't paying attention to what you were doing.
So is there a method to remember, or have I just got to put up with it?
There's a lot you can do to train your brain and improve your focus. And when you improve your focus, you're going to actually improve your memory. Because you won't be walking into the room and saying, what did I come here for? Where are my keys?
Okay, I have to improve my focus. How do I do that?
The acronym called TEAS, T-E-A-S, that helps us with these, what we call senior moments. The T stands for one task at a time. This is a problem, Walter, because we're all doing so many things at one time. So we have to stop multitasking. And it trips up our brain. So we think we're capable of throwing our keys down and going and making a cup of coffee and then answering the phone all at one time. But we can't actually do that all at one time. We have to do one task at a time so that our brain stays very focused on what we're doing. So, example, right, when you leave the key in the lock, if you would be focusing on one task, which is opening your door, taking out the key, and then putting your key where you'll know where it is, if you would have only been doing one task, you wouldn't have tripped up your brain. So that's the T. The E is environment. You want your environment to be conducive to remembering. So oftentimes we have a lot of distractions and noise in the background. And that makes it that we can't focus on what we're doing. Then we say we can't remember, but is it memory? No, it's focus and attention.
You say environment. I can't change my environment. Right. I'm not responsible for the background noise.
Right, you can't change your environment, but you can turn off your cell phone. Like when you're doing an important email or when you're recording something, you don't answer your phone. You turn off your phone because you can't be distracted. So minimizing distractions to the best of our ability. You don't keep getting up to get the phone if you're in the middle of something important. So it's really putting our focus to what we want to remember. So if it's important enough to remember, then it's important enough to really focus. Also, environment has to do with lighting. When you're trying to write an email or focus on writing something important, if the lighting's not good, you're not going to be able to see what you're doing. If there's too much clutter on your desk, you can't focus on what you're doing. And all that's environment. Avoiding distractions or minimizing disruptions, making sure the lighting's good, making sure our desk is clear enough that we could think straight. All these things help us pay more attention to the task at hand. And then from the TEAS, the A stands for automatically. We tend to do things very automatically where we're not paying attention. Our brain is not engaged in what we're doing. So we blame our memory, but it's really focus and attention. I throw my keys down. I do it automatically without thinking about it. My mind is not engaged in what I'm doing. If my mind's not engaged, am I going to remember that I did it? No, but it's not a memory problem. It's a focus and attention issue.
Well, I'm coming home and put my keys down because I know I have something else to do.
So where are you putting them? Are you doing it automatically?
Yes.
So then when you go looking for your keys, they could be anywhere. But if you engage your brain in the action, which means you watch your hand, you listen to the sound, you do it in the same place, right? In Hebrew, we say makom kavua, set place for everything. Then you'll be able to find it. Or if you engage your brain with mental images, our mind thinks in pictures. So a mental image is going to help you find those keys. So when you put those keys down, instead of doing it automatically, you want to do it mindfully by paying attention, by engaging your brain, and by making a strong mental image. So the next time you throw your keys down, imagine a huge bouquet of red roses popping out of those keys. And then in an hour when you say, where are my keys? This image is going to come. It's going to pop into your head, that huge red bouquet of flowers. Or you could have a genie popping out or whatever other imaginative mental image works for you. So you're not doing it automatically. You're engaging your brain. You're mindful. You're paying attention to what you're doing now. And the S stands for senses. This is a great trick. It works every time. Very powerful and very simple. So you are using as many senses as possible to focus and remember. So now you put the keys, your glasses, your phone, whatever you keep losing. When you put it down now, you're going to watch your hand put it down. You're going to hear the sound of it hitting the table or the chair, wherever you're putting it. And you're going to say out loud, I am now putting my keys on the coffee table. Or I have now put my glasses by the sink. Because when you say it out loud, you have a much better chance of remembering it later. The statistic is that your senses stimulate your brain. So when you use one sense to remember something, you have about a 10% chance of remembering it a week later. But if you engage 4 senses, you have a 97% chance of remembering it. All you have to do is engage the senses. So you're looking, you're hearing. If it's taste, if it's something like taking your medicine and you taste the medicine, you're engaging all those senses. Your whole body is now in that task, right? You're smelling, you're tasting, you're hearing. So I'll give one more example that happens a lot to people, which is they forget if they turned off the stove. And this causes a lot of anxiety, especially when you get older. You can get very anxious about that. So now you actually watch your hand turn the stove. You watch the flame go off. You smell the food, right? The food is cooking, so you're smelling it. And then you actually move the pot. When you move the pot, you're doing a kinesthetic action. And that action you're going to remember later. Moving the pot is something you're going to remember.
I hear what you say, but these are very complicated tasks to do all day long. Are you also suggesting that I talk to myself all day? And to think and to watch my hand, that's a task in itself.
Yes. So yes, you should be talking to yourself.
And then imagine a couple in a room talking to themselves. What confusion that would cause.
Gone are the days where we think you're crazy for talking to yourself. In today's day and age, everyone's walking down the street with a Bluetooth in their ear, so everyone's talking to themselves. So don't worry about talking to yourself. It's a good thing. And it's not complicated. What you're doing is you're giving it a couple seconds of attention. I'll give one more example that happens a lot to people, which is they forget if they turned off the stove. And this causes a lot of anxiety, especially when you get older. Whether you turned off the stove or not, you can get very anxious about that. So now you actually watch your hand turn the stove. You watch the flame go off. You smell the food, right? The food is cooking, so you're smelling it. And then you actually move the pot. When you move the pot, you're doing a kinesthetic action. And that action you're going to remember later. Moving the pot is something you're going to remember.
I hear what you say, but these are very complicated tasks to do all day long. Are you also suggesting that I talk to myself all day? And to think and to watch my hand, that's a task in itself.
Yes. So yes, you should be talking to yourself.
And then imagine a couple in a room talking to themselves. What confusion that would cause.
Gone are the days where we think you're crazy for talking to yourself. In today's day and age, everyone's walking down the street with a Bluetooth in their ear, so everyone's talking to themselves. So don't worry about talking to yourself. It's a good thing. And it's not complicated. What you're doing is you're giving it a couple seconds of attention. So you get used to turning off the stove, and instead of your mind being elsewhere, now your mind is focused on what you're doing. So you're watching your hand, you're watching the fire go out, you're moving the pot, you're smelling the food. It takes a couple seconds, and you're giving it attention, and you're making the intention to remember it. It's so simple. It takes a couple seconds.
How long does it take to get into such a routine?
It's really a habit. So just like you brush your teeth, it takes time to brush your teeth. It takes time to lock your door. So you're doing the same thing. Now you're paying attention to it. It's basically not allowing your mind to wander somewhere else, so that when you want to recall what you did, you'll be able to, because your mind is not elsewhere. I always say, so I sort of have to bring my body and my brain to the same spot. So you're doing the same task. You're locking your door, but now you're using your senses to encode the memory properly so you can recall it when you want.
This is a basic method to begin with. Is there any more that I can learn? And if so, what other service do you give?
Sometimes I do one-on-one coaching. So people come to me and say, here are my problems. What solutions do you have? And I can do one-on-one coaching. I teach courses. I also do online, all the techniques for names, numbers, and lists of items. There's one more message that I think is important. People think you just have to suffer with it. There's so much you can learn. And there's a lot of lifestyle factors that we can help our brain work better. So diet, exercise, socialization. A lot of times we're not confident in what we believe we can't remember because we're old. But actually, you don't have a bad memory. It's trained or untrained, and you can train it to work for you. There's so much we can do to help prevent dementia, and the research is new on that.
Your method is also new on all of us, I'm sure. I will certainly try it. Whether I can stick with it, only time will tell. So, if people would like to learn more about training their memory, how do they get in touch with you?
So my email is Rena, R-E-N-A, at renayudkowsky.com. RENAYUDKOWSKY.com.
Can you also be reached by phone?
Anyone about their memory concerns, it's 058-323-2273.
And please don't forget to mention that you heard it on this program. Rena Yudkowsky, thank you for coming all the way here to speak to us, and I very much appreciate your time.
Thank you, Walter. It's a pleasure.
Until the next time, this is Walter Bingham, hoping that my Christian listeners will have had a meaningful holiday and that all your New Year celebrations brought you into a happy 2022. To all my Jewish listeners, I wish a successful and good week. By the way, according to the Hebrew calendar, last Shabbat I celebrated my 98th birthday. In the secular calendar, it's the 5th of January, when I shall enter my 99th year of life.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.